in the last couple of weeks, you know, when Philadelphia, these types of crimes that the state commits against our people all over the country happen on a regular basis, not only in Philly, but everywhere, you know. Just last week, we are organizing right now, in fact, with the families of 3 young brothers who we call the Jomo 3, 2 of whom actually were participating in work of the Uhuru movement, coming into Jomo, which is to be the youth wing of the Uhuru movement, and they were recently arrested and framed up on charges from the state, and their entire case really is concentrated in this whole so-called war on the flash mob, and I'm going to talk about that in a minute. But one of the mothers of the Jomo 3 was telling me how her other son, who was older than the brother that's locked up right now, was recently, he has a Crown Victoria, which is, you know, a car known, you know, for young African men driving, you know what I mean? They're, you know, inexpensive, you know, old school joints, and the police, anytime they see a Crown Vic in the streets, they're going to follow it. That's just a given, you know, and on this particular night, they followed this young brother to his house. When he got out, he's like, you know, why y'all keep fucking with me? You know what I mean? Like, this happens on a regular basis. And they end up, you know, just beating him up. They brutalized him, you know, no charge. They didn't arrest him or nothing. They just beat him down, you know, viciously and left him, you know, on the sidewalk. And, you know, he had actually woke up in the hospital. No charges, no arrests. But these are the types of attacks that happen all the time. You know, sometimes, very rarely, you'll see it on the news and caught on YouTube or whatever, but, you know, this is the relationship that the state has with African people, especially, you know, African youth, you know. Other incidents in terms of not only the police, but there was another report from some forces that we're working with who, you know, some young Africans who we are trying to bring into Jomo right now, who reported that, you know, during the summertime, it's not unusual for the fire department to show up to break up the party and actually spray them down with hoses. You know, something reminiscent of what happened in the 50s and the 60s during the civil rights struggle is happening right now. Another incident that, you know, stood out around a situation involving just general white colonial violence, especially in an area, a gentrified area of Philadelphia, in North Philadelphia, where Temple University is expanding its own territory. And in this area, Africans, especially African youth, come up under constant assault, not only by the police, but regular white people who, you know, essentially, you know, settlers, just like the white people in South Africa or Zimbabwe who refuse to leave even to this day. You know, the same type of relationship occurs in areas of Philly and other cities that are being gentrified. And one of the comrades, Calvin, was telling me how just a couple of weeks ago, this white guy just, you know, runs up on Calvin and his friends and sprays them with some mace. And then, you know, the white guy runs. Of course, you know, they internalize this whole question of African resistance. So I don't think that he's going to be able to use a can of mace or anything that requires the use of his hands anytime soon. But the point is that these are the types of attacks on African people that occur on a regular basis. But in the absence of revolutionary media, revolutionary organization to actually tell the truth, to tell the story from the perspective of the oppressed African community, next thing you hear about is on Channel 6 how this gang of young thugs, you know, beat this poor innocent white boy up, or this, you know, old white lady who's trying to cross the street, you know, and but the truth is obscured because the media, of course, works in the same interest as the police and other forces who benefit from the colonization of the African community. So I really appreciate this conference, this plenary, the African People Solidarity Committee, for the work that y'all do in terms of going back into the white community, educating white people around what their role and responsibility in this whole thing is, and winning them to a correct stance. So it's not as easy for African people and African resistance to be isolated and criminalized by the state. And in fact, now we find the state having to be on the defensive, finding itself having to defend its actions, its crimes it commits against us. So that's part of the significance of this plenary and the discussion that we're having right now. But I want to really talk tonight about the work that the International People's Democratic Uhuru movement is doing to organize African resistance, because just as many Masons and beatdowns like the ones I just described, they happen all the time, but what is not always understood or known is the fact that this resistance is occurring. And in fact, this is part of the reason why we are holding our upcoming national convention with the theme of Africans have a right to resist. We demand freedom and reparations now. Because more than ever, we recognize our legitimate right to resist. We believe all oppressed people have a right and a responsibility to resist their oppression and to do everything in our power to destroy a system of oppression. We believe, we recognize that, as Comrade Chairwoman Penny has said, even as the U.S. government wages a war, a colonial war of aggression against the people of the Middle East and Afghanistan and Iraq and in Palestine, that same war is being waged against black people right here in the U.S. And really the only difference, as we've been saying, is that in a place like Afghanistan, the police is called Marines, and in the south side of St. Pete, the Marines is called police. That's the only difference. But on both sides of the equation, these are wars being fought to expropriate, to steal resources from oppressed people around the world, and to prevent the people from whom the resources are being stolen the ability to do anything about it. And that's what it comes down to. That's why Obama would spend nearly $1 trillion on the Marine deployment in Afghanistan. That's why everywhere on the planet you find U.S. imperialism intervening militarily in the lives and affairs of oppressed people, and that's why you find the police in the hood right now. I'm more familiar with the situation in Philadelphia because, as you know, independent of my own choice, I have no choice but to be in Philly right now and to organize around the oppression that our people suffer there. And I can tell you firsthand that it ain't nothing but colonial theft going on in the city of Philadelphia. So even as, the Marines there that facilitate the theft of oil and whatnot, the police facilitate the theft of billions, if not trillions of dollars of wealth from the African community in places like Philadelphia, Detroit, etc. And this theft comes in the form of, these illegitimate taxes that are being charged on the people, and we say it's taxation without representation because you got to pay taxes for everything, from getting your garbage picked up, you got to pay a tax to drink a can of soda, you got to pay tax to buy something, not only you got to pay Foot Locker for a pair of Nikes, but you got to pay the damn government for the pair of Nikes too, you got to pay taxes for everything, to own a home or to even rent a home when it comes down to it, because your landlord is going to charge you to compensate for the taxes that he got to pay. But the fact is that, none of the money raised off of charging these taxes on the people ever comes back to the African community. All those taxes go towards, the police containment of our community. That's why, as y'all know, in the city of Philadelphia, over $1 billion is spent on police, prisons, and courts that attack the African community, but 75% of North Philly lives below the poverty line. 50% at least of African youth are unemployed, and that's not even counting those who was locked down in the prisons. So, you don't find no evidence, that the money that you pay the government even existed, because it's all going to white power. And if you have the intelligence and the courage to say, I'm not going to pay no taxes to a government that don't do a damn thing for my community, then that's when we really see what the role of the state is. Because the next thing that happens, they send the police, do you like Wesley Snipes, and that's real, and, And if I was Wesley, I'd be like, y'all need to give me that $5 million back that I gave you before you locked me up. He thought I was going to get him out of it. They said, we're going to take the money and we're going to lock your ass up. But the point is that, you know, this is the theft of resources that we're talking about, and the state is in place to make sure that your resources continue to be sucked out of your community, out of our community, out of the African community. And this is the same colonial theft that we're talking about. And Africans, obviously, we have a right to resist that. We have a right not only to resist the theft of our resources in the community, but we have a right to resist the exploitation and the theft of our labor that's going on in the prisons. That's why we say right on to what's going on right now in the state of Georgia with the prisoners, you know, preventing the state from being able to exploit them there. And from what we're hearing, that type of resistance is spreading throughout the country. I think we've seen a report out of Ohio where a similar type of struggle is trying to happen there, and I'm sure that it's going to begin in other places as well. So we say that Africans have a right and a responsibility to be involved in a type of resistance. And in terms of InPDUM's role and responsibility in the convention is to go out and to give consciousness to that resistance, to go out and organize that resistance, because it's happening all the time. We talked about the prisons, what's going on in there, but not just there, because this colonial war affects us in every aspect of our lives. You know, again, in the city of Philly, while $1 billion going towards the police, the school system only gets $200 million. That's, you know, less than 1/5 of what the damn state, you know, the police and the prisons get. The school system only gets $200 million. In North Philly, in the same area where we're doing a lot of work and where our convention is going to be held, there's not even a high school in existence. There was not one high school in the entire zip code, you know, in this particular section in North Philly, you know, and that's a crime in itself. But they got all types of, you know, police forces. The Temple Police is there. You got the, you know, the regular City of Philadelphia Police, Homeland Security, all these military, you know, agencies in that area, but it's not one school. And in fact, you know, this is not something going on in North Philly, but throughout the entire city, the situation in terms of education is very bleak, and it's just another manifestation of the same colonial war. They have no intentions to provide any form of education for African people. In fact, you know, they're closing down the schools, and the only thing that even is remotely referred to as a school is the damn youth jail. They call it the Youth Study Center. They got the nerve to call it the Youth Study Center, you know. And right now, the city is in the process of creating a state-of-the-art, quote-unquote, state-of-the-art youth prison to lock the masses of young Africans up in. So this is what we're up against, and we say, yes, African people have a right and a responsibility to resist these attacks as well. And not only do they have a right to resist, but we have a responsibility to provide them with organizational leadership, organize them around a program that demands community control of education, so that that sister that got to go down to the school system complaining about how her child was abused or is denied education doesn't have to go there alone. She has a whole organization going down to the school district with her, demanding not only education for her child, but community control education for the entire African community, and the resources that's going to the police need to be going towards that. This is the type of resistance that we want to provide real organizational leadership and consciousness to. And there's various other components of this type of resistance that we intend to organize and provide leadership to, not only in Philly, but all over the country. One other thing, I know my time is limited, but one other thing I think is very important in terms of understanding the significance of African resistance is understanding our own relationship to what is happening around the world in terms of the crisis of imperialism and the fact that we are involved in the same struggle that oppressed people around the world is involved in. You know, we unite with the struggle of the Iraqi people for their own national liberation, with the Afghani people, with the Palestinian people, with the Venezuelan people, etc. And part of the goal of the convention is also to provide consciousness to African people to help them understand that the resistance